Hello, hello, hello.
What's going on, Carla?
What's going on, Chris? Where are you this time?
I mean, it's kind of relevant to what we're going to talk about today. I'm in a parking lot because I just dropped my son off for baseball.
Nice.
And, a lot of what I find myself doing, not just these days, always, right, is like, how do I balance work with family, with my side gig as like a taxi driver for my kids? Sometimes it falls into place, often it doesn't. So that's where I am. I'm not driving, by the way. I know it probably looks like I'm driving.
Breaking laws.
Right? That's my commitment to Cup of Joy, Carla. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not driving.
Okay.
And I know where you are. You're at home, but temporarily, right?
Yes. Why?
Aren't you? Well, you're about to go to a bunch of different places.
Yes. LA for our Ashe local squad convening our fellowship. And then to Jackson for another convening. Yeah, Jackson, Mississippi. There's a lot of movement going happening. But similar to you though, I'm like really red, but that's because I just came back from working out. Got to take care of my body and my mind. So
nice.
On the same page.
Well, we're gonna try to do a lot of that next week. I think some folks may have received a communication from us. Big picture is following the footsteps of a lot of amazing organizations that we admire and borrow from, and we're gonna go on a communal rest period for next week. All of our staff shutting off our computers, muting our social media feeds, really taking some time to turn off work and turn on life. That seems it's a little age of Aquarius, right? But we're looking forward to it.
Cool. And so who do we have today? I'm excited.
Yeah, so I'm gonna very quickly tee up our guests because I want to bring them on. But one of the organizations that we have learned from that has done a similar rest process is the Reinvention Lab, which is underneath Teach for America. So we're welcoming Elisabeth Booze, who has been core to that work. Elisabeth,
hey.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Elisabeth, I have a question to sort of kick off the conversation, but I want to start by asking, who are you?
Yeah.
What do you do, and tell us a little bit about your organization?
Yeah, so I work in service of storytelling at the Reinvention Lab. We are powered by Teach for America. We are a place that is really trying to uplift the work of education, innovation, work that's happening at the intersection of equity and reinvention.
Nice.
Yeah.
So my colleague, Eunice Mitchell, who's been on the show before, she and I and others had started exploring this idea of rest, and wanted to learn from other organizations that were doing it. Coincidentally, I believe I sent out a newsletter, which you must be on. You must be on our mailing list, because I got an out of office email from you which said we're on rest.
Yeah.
So in the period that we were searching for orgs that were doing this, your out of office message alerted me that the Reinvention Lab was doing it. I want to read from the out of office email I got from you as my prompt. In your email, it said, if we respond to the collective weight our team has carried this year by taking time to rest, then something important will happen. You all have taken rest. Did something important happen?
I think it did. I think it's still happening. But yeah, so that email must have been back in September. Our team, we just, like everyone in the country and the world, we were experiencing like outsized amounts of loss and exhaustion. And we hit a point that we were like, yo, we just need to pause. And yeah, since pausing, we've changed how we team. So there are some things like in the collective way we work that have kind of adjusted given that season of rest. And then I know individuals are changing kind of their relationship to work, their daily routines. We have other kind of like cadences of rest that I think we all engage with like a little bit more seriously and intentionally now. Like when we have a 3-day weekend, I think we are all way more intentional about like, what am I actually going to do to like invest in a sense of rest during this time? So Yeah, I think some important things have happened and are continuing to happen. And we're just kind of like still in this learning space of like, what is reverberating from us taking that time?
I was reading the report that you have
Mhm.
about the lessons learned, and I think one thing that stands out to me is this idea of taking rest collectively.
Yeah.
How did that come about in terms of when you presented the idea to the team? Was it like 100% yes, we're on board, or did you have folks who were like, I have things to do. I don't know if I could pause this right now.
It was a range of responses. Understandably, like, work is one of the most consistent structures in people's lives, like it gives our day structure. It's a huge part of our identity often. So understandably, some folks were like, well, like I have this and this and this priority that this would mess up, or my job really intersects with like external partners. Like, how am I going to manage that? So there was a lot we kind of had to really carefully work through to make it happen, but we had to decide collectively, like, this is a priority, because there's always going to be a reason we need to keep working. Like, that's just never going away,
And so I was also reading about this idea of like setting intentions.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that now, like, we're midweek, right? And next week for us is our rest. I'm barely able to like look at.
Yeah.
Would you want to share like what were some of the intentions that you set for your, and I think you did 2 weeks, right?
Yeah, we did 2 weeks.
Yeah. So what were some of those intentions?
Yeah. So intentions were like, that was the best decision we made, I think, because you could set plans out the yin yang for your rest period, and some will happen and some won't. But I still remember my intention for those 2 weeks was to be gentle with myself. And originally I thought that I was going to go in with this intention of really tending to like different creative work and like side gig things. Like, this is going to be time that I really intend towards those. And when it got here, I was like, I'm tired. I just need to be gentle with myself. And I came back to that time and time again as plans shifted, as I was really productive creatively or I wasn't. It was like, that's not what this is about. The intention really became like the touchstone for those 2 weeks, even as a lot of other things shifted. And I know other folks on the team had the same kind of experience. Like, things came up with people's families, things came up with people's communities that they had to tend to. And it's like, I need to tend to this. How can I still live into my intention versus feeling like I'm failing at rest because I'm not like at the spa, like we really had to push back against some of those like notions of self-care and rest and wellness, because life isn't always like that. Life throws things at us.
Yes, I agree. I think one of the Chris and I were talking earlier about like, well, what are you gonna do, right? Or like, what should we do? Because we live like an hour and a half away from each other. Maybe do something collectively. But the first thing I said is like, I'm gonna sleep in, and that's just something that I haven't done in a while that I'm really excited for. Yes. I was also gonna ask the 2 week structure, right? So a lot of people play with different structures. I was reading that there's some I forget, you might know the name of organization or school or org that is doing a 4-day week for their
work. That's Rise Colorado.
Yes, which I'm like, that sounds really exciting. Hint, hint, Frisch and Los. But how did 2 weeks versus, and I don't know if you ideated with any other ideas, how did that feel for you, for the organization?
Yeah. Originally, we pitched 1 week to the team, and that was where we landed when we looked at all of the things on our collective calendar, and it just felt like, ooh, this is going to be like, we will feel it if we take more than 1 week. And when we took that to the team, the overwhelming response was like, that's not enough. And we leaned into the discomfort that came with shutting down for 2 weeks. And I think that's one of the big lessons we learned is like, there should be some discomfort. Like, it shouldn't fit neatly into like continuing all of your systems of productivity, like rolling as usual. So yeah, we heard the feedback, we shifted to 2 weeks, and it was the right amount of time. Cause I think you spend the whole first week like adjusting to not being at work. Yeah. And then the second you kind of dig into that, like the goodness of actually resting.
Gotcha. Chris.
Carla, can I jump in?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, like, so one of the things that we've really wrestled with is that unfortunately rest and taking rest is still a privilege, and that's one of the things that we want to make sure that our efforts combat. It shouldn't be a privilege to rest, but it is. And one of the things it's worth acknowledging is we work very closely with schools who don't have the luxury of just saying we want to rest now. So I wonder if you all did any wrestling of that or learned anything, because it's definitely something that's forefront of our minds right now. How do we rest when we know that people can't?
Yeah, we really did wrestle with that before we rested, during our rest, after our rest. And what we had to land on was like, if we truly believe that like young people who are in this system right now deserve to be recognized as the whole human beings they are, not just test scores, not just head counts, then we have to afford ourselves the same wholeness. And I think we are under similar pressure oftentimes. Is like, you are like, the measure of you is your output. And so I think while we continue to wrestle with that, because we sit in an immense place of privilege where we can shut down, we also like do believe that like this is an act of like us practicing what we preach, because we do want a future where like young people, educators, school leaders are able to just like live very whole lives and not just be like productivity machines.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, looking at time, we really, really appreciate you coming here, sharing your lessons, what you learned, kind of like, just explaining what the process was like for you. I'm going to share, if folks want to check out and read a little bit more about the Reinvention Lab and what they did for their rest week, you can check out their website. I'm going to drop it and read this report, which is the first one that you see. There you go. You can go to reinventionlab.org, scroll down, and you'll find this. Thank you so much, Elisabeth.
Thank you.
Thanks, Elisabeth.
Yeah.
And this is the
Enjoy
first time.
your week of rest.
Oh, thank you. Yes.
Thank you.
I'm going to journal about it and think about it. And this is the hard part, is booting you. So I'm saying bye. Okay. Wow.
Carla, the article Elisabeth and her team wrote, what I have found interesting so far is that they're calling it liberatory practice. We've called it radical. Another organization we've learned from called it an active counterculture, which just goes to show that people look at rest as something that's sort of distant and like, ooh, wow, that's counterculture. It really shouldn't be that way, but it is.
I mean, it goes against the machine, right? It goes against us being productive capitalist workers. And I think that's what we need to do, right? And reflect as like, I think about it all the time. I'm like, am I a human? Like, what am I working to die? Like, it's just,
wow,
this can get super meta, right?
You need some rest.
I need some rest right now. Anyway, you want to close it? I close it.
Well, let me just close by saying, obviously, we're off next week, so there will be no cup of joy. So spend that week doing your best, whether it suits you or not.
The choice is yours.
It is.
Okay, y'all. See y'all later.